Good evening, everyone. I want to call the June 18th Parks and Recreation Commission meeting to order. First thing is roll call.
Commissioner Mattson,
Here.
Commissioner Morat,
Here.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Commissioner Herdina,
Here.
Commissioner Gary. Present. Commissioner Lundmark,
Here.
and Commissioner Eckert is out. He did let us know in advance.
All right, if everybody's please join us in this Pledge of Allegiance. Next item, approve the agenda. Anybody have an addition or correction? Otherwise, look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Open forum. We do have one speaker, Barb Pribble. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
No, you were perfect.
So, welcome. Thank you for
So
coming
thank
out.
you. Thank you. Hi, my name is Barb Pribble. My address is 21930 Harrow Avenue North. I just wanted to come tonight and bring up something for consideration by the Park and Recreation Commission. It's actually something that's been near and dear to my heart for 4 years now. Back in 2021, we were putting up the clubhouse at Castlewood. And at that time, I was speaking to the city council about my enthusiasm for the clubhouse. And I said, gee, if we put the new clubhouse up, it would be wonderful if we could name it in honor of longtime resident and community leader Jim Trudeau. And at that time, the council was receptive to the idea. Of course, the clubhouse took a fair amount of time to get built, but I stayed in touch with then City Administrator Patrick Casey on the issue, and he said, I'd really like to kind of bring it up to the Park and Recreation Commission once we get the building a little bit further along, and then that took a little bit longer, and then I reached out again, and he said, well, we still want to bring it through the Park and Recreation Commission, but then, as you all know, there was no Park and Recreation Commission for about 2.5 years. So here I am 4 years later, and I just don't really want to let this die because I'm assuming most of you on the commission here are familiar with Jim, but if you're not, he was a very revered resident of our community. He was the founder in 1977 of what is now the Lake Center for Youth and Families, which is a diversion and youth enrichment organization in Forest Lake. He was chief of police here in Forest Lake for 12 years, Washington County Sheriff for 15 years, numerous accolades throughout our community, including 2013 Community Volunteer of the Year by the Forest Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, and everybody loved Jim. So you're thinking, okay, police chief, Washington County Sheriff, what's that got to do with the golf course? Well, Jim's grandfather owned the golf course way back in the 1920s, and he ran it as a golf course until the war hit, and then they raised turkeys out there, and Jim is quoted in an article in the St. Paul paper and various other places talking about his youth growing up on the course and running around the course and chasing turkeys, and he just loved that course. So what happened is when the course got in some trouble a number of years ago, when we decided to go out for a request for proposal, and Foursome wasn't around back then, we didn't really get much response until Jim popped in with a buddy of his at the time and committed to running the course. And for those of you who may not know, he did run the course for 5 years until his health deteriorated, and then his protege kind of took over. But in those 5 years, he put in $300,000 of his own money, and he made numerous improvements to the course, and he never took a dime in salary. And as he said, he did it all for the community and to give back to the community and the course that he loved. So I would just love nothing more than to see him receive some sort of tribute for his dedication to our community and his love of the golf course. We did, then Mayor Bain and I both did reach out. I know Jim's wife, Carol, and talked with her. She talked with the family. They were amenable to it. And Mayor Bain works with Jim and Carol's daughter, Christy. She talked with her. They were amenable to it. We reached out with them again a couple years later, just because there was some controversy in the community over the funding for the clubhouse, and they still were honored that we were thinking of doing that. So just to wrap up quickly, then at that time in 2021, I did put a petition in the clubhouse, and it was signed by 92 people. About 50% of those were Forest Lake residents who said, yeah, we'd love to see this clubhouse be named. I'm hoping somewhere in the files, in Patrick Casey's files or a Castlewood file, that petition is still there. I did forward the blank copy as well as some correspondence that Patrick Casey and I had to Kyle earlier today. So just would, again, love to see if that would be something that you might consider. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next item, approve.
Well, we don't comment, do we?
Nope.
Yeah.
You have anything else? Oh, no. So, meeting minutes?
Yep, okay, certainly be an item we can talk about at some point, so, okay. Number 6, approve meeting minutes from May 21st, 2025 meeting. We have a motion, or anybody have any additions or corrections?
So moved.
A second.
Okay, moved by Tim, second by Melissa. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right, staff report. Castlewood Golf Course operations, Kyle, Dave, and the Foursome group.
So Henry with Foursome is here to just do some general updates, course programs. Henry's in charge of, I believe, in charge of all the maintenance out there, and again, the programming and the operations of the place. So he's got a pretty good overview of updates, and then we also have a few more items, obviously related to some capital improvement projects as well, and then to kind of highlight on the agreement with Foursome that is due up at the end of this year. So I am gonna share the screen, so behind your computer and your display screens, what Henry is kind of talking about will pop up here in just a minute, and otherwise we'll turn it over to Henry.
All right. Well, hi there,
Welcome.
everybody. Yeah, appreciate that. Just a little background about me. I've been the manager now there. This is a little over 2 years, but kind of the third golf season, so really starting to understand and kind of get to know the community more and more as I've been here. But just kind of a few things to note that you'll see here in the summary. Kind of the biggest highlight, I'd say, is obviously the increase in our net income from 2023 to 2024, as well as we've kind of maintained that momentum here into 2025. And rounds have also been on the rise, which is especially nice after a wet spring like last spring, and then it was pretty nice until the last couple weeks here when it comes to moisture. But moving on, another highlight obviously is the new clubhouse, or 2 years old now. Kind of the big thing with that is being able to maintain operations year round. So we run simulators out of the clubhouse all winter long, and with that comes parties for different groups around here, whether it's youth sporting teams holding their end of season parties and things like that. And then kind of moving on, I'll just kind of jump right into the net income here. So kind of like like I already brought up, 2023 is what I'm going to really highlight on, as well as 2024, just because those are the years I was here. But when it comes to that, 2023, obviously you see that was the lowest net income we had. That was the first summer with the clubhouse. There were a lot of expenses and things like that came with it. But then kind of after we got our feet under us, you guys can see how last year went, having our highest mark ever, which we're very proud of. And like I said, we're continuing that momentum, which is nice. And then if we scroll down here, you'll see with the gross revenue, that obviously doesn't have any expenses or anything like that, but you can see that through May here, we are up 12,000 compared to that. And we'll touch on the profit and loss statement a little later on. That'll show how we are doing. But you can see steadily growing, kind of some big things with that. Just COVID really helped the golf boom, we call it, that really let people know that they could do it. And it was one of the only things people could do. And that momentum has kind of continued. So that's been nice to see. Like I touched on with the rounds as well, you can see they've been on the rise since 2022, 2023. And that's especially nice to see, especially like I said, after last year with how wet it was. It was pretty tough. We were walking only for quite a bit during that time, but we kept people coming out. And then we have also gotten lucky here the last 2 springs. They've been early springs, so we've been able to open, you know, last year in '24, we opened, I think it was like February 26th, which is pretty crazy. And then this year it was, I think, March 1st or March 2nd. Like I said, it's been a drier spring, so that's helped. Moving on from that, kind of going into the programming and membership, we have all these leagues here. They've been going great. The couples league has been great. That's been steadily climbing here. When I started, we started with, I believe it was 14 teams, and then we had 18 last year, and we're up to 20 this year. So that keeps our Monday nights full. And then the kind of my favorites here, the Tuesday juniors and the Wednesday juniors. I just want to say, growing up, I wasn't able to golf just because I couldn't afford it at my small town, you know, city golf course. So being able to work for this course and work with the community is very rewarding. So I appreciate you guys giving us the ability to do that. And working with Community Ed on that has been great. They're a great partner, and they partner with us on other things. They let us, you know, show our other leagues in their mailers, and they're gonna have our winter sim leagues in the mailers as well. So we're hoping that'll help grow that, because that's kind of the next thing I'd like to touch on. When it comes to the facility, like I already touched on with the birthday party packs, full clubhouse reservations, the winter sim golf leagues, that's the big thing with the new clubhouse. Obviously, on a night like tonight, when I'm running league, they had somewhere to go. They could get out of the rain, which is very nice, and they had, you know, indoor plumbing and whatnot, so that's nice, but then it does keep us going all throughout the winter, which is kind of the big thing. And the nice thing with that is we don't start in a hole every year, or at least not as big of a hole as we used to. You know what I mean? When it comes to staffing, getting the course ready, that all takes time and money, obviously, staffing. But when we're not, you know, we've been making money all winter, or trying to, that really helps us. Like I touched on with the strategic, or with the partnerships, Community Ed is the big one. Like I said, run our juniors programs through them, as well as they show the rest of our leagues, which has helped. We've seen an increase in the leagues as well. I think we have an additional team in each of our men's leagues, and I know the women's league added a team as well. And then also this year, new to Castlewood, we've partnered with Minnesota Golf Association and Youth on Course, which I think is a really cool program that they have. Essentially what it is, they pay a membership to the MGA. I believe it's between $100 and $150, and what that gets them is $5 greens fees at $5 green fees at Castlewood all year long, as well as any other participating golf course throughout Minnesota. So that's a very cool way for kids to get a chance to play, like I said, especially because golf is not always the most accessible or affordable thing for the youth specifically. And then kind of rolling off that with the scholarship initiatives, the Steve Byster Memorial Foundation, run by Kathy and Ron, they've been great to work with. Last year, we had 3 participants in the junior program fully funded by the scholarships given by them, Peter Steliz, Penny Steliz, and Joseph Song. And then this year, they also made another donation, so we're working through figuring out who's gonna get those scholarships, as well as some other ways we might be able to use that money to get the underserved youth on the course as well. Then just kind of going here for some of the challenges we face. One of the main things is our irrigation system. It's kind of duct tape and bubble gum together. That's kind of how we get through with it. The main things with it, we have, like it says here, we have over 17 individual fairway heads and some greens that we have to water by hand, which probably doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but that's all things that have to be done during the day. So that takes extra time, and we have someone who, one of their main jobs is just to go turn on sprinkler heads, because they're not going off at night. And the big thing with that is you lose it takes double the time to water during the day. So we're using more water than we probably need to be, and it's kind of not the way things should be run. So upgrading that would help, reduce labor, improve consistency, and just enhance the course conditions overall. Moving off of that as well, the cart paths we have, We do what we can with them, but they're obviously limited pavement, and then we have all clay soil over there. So as we've learned over the last few days as well, it just holds all of the water. So over the weekend, we had a great weekend, luckily, with Father's Day. It's always one of the best days of the year. But the course did take some damage from that, just because can't not have carts on a day like that. And that's going to tear up the course. And kind of like I highlight down here, no carts equals no play. So if I wouldn't have had carts, we wouldn't have had anyone out and missed out on one of our best days. So if we were able to expand cart paths, that would just make it so, if we have a wet spring or anything like that, we're not losing all the play that we could have. Moving off of that, some things that we're planning, hoping to maybe get accomplished. We're going to work with Dunick. I'm not sure if you guys want to touch on this at all, but main thing kind of going off of all that would be the drainage, specifically on our greens, number 3 and number 5, as you guys can see here. Like for instance, we haven't been able to mow it since Thursday now because of all the rain we've got. So those greens are pretty tough, and I can tell you because I was spraying them this morning. Disease-wise, that's also what makes them get disease. When they get all this moisture, they can't get mowed, and then it gets hot like this. It makes for pretty tough playing conditions, and it's pretty hard to maintain. So adding in the drainage that we're looking to would really help with that. It'd be able to make it so we can consistently mow it even when it rains like this. And again, when it comes to disease and playability, it's really going to improve that. Then also, we're looking to expand 6 green and kind of reshape it. Main thing with this is our smallest green, and it suffers the most wear and tear because of that. To get really into the weeds with it, essentially we can't put holes in very many spots on that green, so it gets very beat up because it's the same 2-3 spots that are always getting hit with golf balls. And if we were able to expand that, it would just improve the health of that green and kind of the course quality overall. Then kind of moving on, if there are any specific questions here with the P&L, happy to answer that. But the main thing you can see, we are up a little over 8,000 compared to last May, which is great, especially because we've had some irrigation issues and things like that we have had to address, but we're still doing pretty well. And yeah, those are kind of the main things I've got here. Is there anything else you guys want to add or anything else I need to address?
I had a question.
Yeah.
Because I was reading through all of this and I couldn't tell what did the simulators make? Because I see the rounds, but you don't consider that as a part of the simulators. So what
Oh,
was the
correct.
product from the
Yep.
simulators themselves?
So,
Maybe close enough at this.
yeah,
detail.
so if you, can I zoom in here?
Yeah, it's not listed out on their PL as exact.
Okay.
It doesn't say simulators, it's tied
Yep.
in with another.
So if you see here, can you all see that?
Yeah,
This facility rental, sorry, wrong one.
okay.
Facility rental, this is going to be almost entirely all simulator revenue.
Okay.
So it might not be exact because, for instance, like a full clubhouse reservation, if someone books that, they may not use the simulators, but they reserve those simulators if they have a full clubhouse reservation.
right.
So this is what you're going to be seeing when it comes to these simulators.
Perfect.
Like I said, that's that helps us not start in a huge hole because we have that revenue right there throughout the winter.
That one.
Karen?
I had a small question about the parties that are booked there. Are they all charged rental, or are there some nonprofits that maybe aren't? How do you arrange the rental fees for parties?
So far, it's been all charged. We haven't had any nonprofits or anything like that reach out or be interested. And I guess I'm not 100% sure how we would necessarily go about that, but that's something we'd obviously love to look into.
But rent is coming in, so that's.
Yes, yep.
So go ahead,
I
Kyle.
was just gonna add that, so they do have a set fee schedule that's approved by council, and that fee schedule doesn't account for like nonprofit status or anything like that, so it is across the board, so even if a nonprofit were to call the rent, they would pay that fee schedule, just so you know that.
And I think that's also a big spot that Henry and Kyle have talked about too, is I don't think a lot of people are aware that this is a venue where you can have a birthday party and rent some simulators and have a bunch of girls or boys come in there and have a birthday party with, pizza and pop and play simulator for 3 hours. I think that's something the city needs to do a better job of promoting, that there's an activity here year-round where, it's your bowling alleys or whatever that people think of, but that's another pretty cool event that you could have with families, that it's probably underutilized, that is out there that we have to offer in the city.
So there's two items before us to think about. The first is giving staff a motion to negotiate a new agreement with Foursome. And the second one is to recommend council's approving addressing drainage issues at Castlewood up to $80,000. And the question I have, is that just addressing the two greens or the three greens that you brought, or does it also address the irrigation?
That does not, it's just for the drainage.
Yeah, it's just gonna be those few drainage items that he talked about here. The irrigation will be, that's a whole separated project.
Can you plug me in at all?
You got the, use this one.
I unplugged it.
Has there been estimates down on how much it would cost to
For the
bring the
drainage?
irrigation up to snuff?
The irrigation or the drainage?
Irrigation.
The irrigation, that would have been, Dave, did you guys?
Probably. I'm trying to pull up the
Oh, okay.
CIP here for you
Okay.
guys.
Perfect.
Thanks, Dave.
So this is what has been submitted to city council for the 10-year CIP. $80,000 is for these T-box refurbishments. It's estimated, 2 years ago, it was estimated about $700,000. It's probably about $900,000 now for irrigation. And then, to Henry's point, that cart path paving is out in 2030 for $200,000. There is a refurbishment for their actual maintenance building that's floating, I think, in 2036. That pole barn that's out there that's falling apart, and that may slide sooner than later. A lot of it's, this golf course wasn't making any money, it was losing money for a lot of years. Now that it's making money, that revenue gets, it's dedicated to get dumped back into the course, and also if the Parks Commission and the city wants to keep it going, that, we have to, put some investment in that too, so. Irrigation is original. Karen probably knows more than I do, but, when that was put in, it's probably the 80s, right? It's probably
Exactly.
40-some years old.
And I'm so glad to see that it's still being maintained from Jim Trudeau and our association with this, and we'd be very happy to recommend to go into a negotiation with the contract. Like I said, you saw my enthusiasm for Jim Trudeau. He did a spectacular job out there, and we were always so pleased early on that you took it. And I'm so glad to see that it's making money. For years, we had to pay somebody in because there was an agreement that you had to make so much or the city had to put in. So I just think the whole thing has turned out to positive, and like Fenway, it's a very special place in our community that brings in a lot of people. So I don't know what the rest feel, but I'd be very much in favor.
I love seeing all the youth coming in and out of there. That's what warms my heart is, I like to go and play myself, and the course is great. The simulators are awesome. That clubhouse is, we gotta get together in there sometime with our groups. But I would definitely be in favor.
So the first item is to make a motion to city staff to negotiate a new agreement with Foursome Golf Management Group LLC. Would you want to make that motion, Karen? So Karen makes that motion.
Second.
All right, second by Tim. Any other discussion on that one?
Keep up the good work.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That one passes. And then the second one we've been talking about is make a motion to recommend council's approval of addressing drainage issues at Castlewood Golf Course with costs up to $80,000.
So moved.
Tim moves,
I second.
Sue seconds. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great,
Thank you. Great work out there.
appreciate it. Thank you all.
May I ask a question? Was a comment made
Absolutely.
about the pole barn falling apart?
What was that?
Something about the pole barn falling apart?
The equipment one?
It's an original pole barn, right? There's dirt floors and not heated, and for them to run their operation out there, it's kind of dicey, right? So we're trying to splice everything into where we can afford stuff. It may be sooner or later. I think Henry left now, but I think Henry would say that the irrigation is probably more important than the maintenance building right now. I mean, if the course is not green and
Yeah.
playable, that's more important than that, but it's also a large sum, and that's something that, as a commission, we'll be talking about later on. I mean, I brought this up just to show you that that's kind of gonna be on the table for 2026. I mean, it's budgeted, and how our fees are slated, it can be paid for, but it's also a big chunk of money that it goes to something. So I would just say, well, stay tuned. We'll be talking about that later in the year, probably July or August, for recommendation to council to say, yes, we recommend that you keep this in the budget, or no, we don't. So I think that's kind of, I would say July or August is where we're gonna want your feedback on that. So just kind of think about that, keep that in the back of your mind of something that we're gonna have to make that recommendation to council one way or the other.
Let's advertise that party room.
What was that?
Advertise that party room. Let's get that money in.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Do they have their own well for the water, Dave, or is it city water?
Yeah, so it runs on stormwater, so it grabs a lot of water off of the course and from the other side of 97, so they take storm pond water, but then when they can't keep up, there's a well there that'll backfill. So it's kind of like Fenway. Fenway runs off of recycled water until there's not enough water in the pond, and then we kick the well on to fill it, so. Part of this rehab is actually rehabbing the well too, and the pumping station, and then all the irrigation. So, that 900,000 is for about a 100-year irrigation system, would be all HDPE, it would be top of line, and all of us, and then the next ones of us, and the next ones after that would never have to worry about it. So, I mean, it'd be an investment, but it'd also be something that would be a long-term investment, if that's what, the city wants that golf course here.
You mentioned there'd be some savings in water and labor. That might be a good number to have. Consider this, that adds up over 20, 30 years.
Yep. Especially, in city water, what that toll is, we can get those numbers of what they actually run. I know we have those numbers pretty good on Fenway of what we run annually, but I know we have a meter out there of how much they use, but you could calculate that into, if you were hooked to the city system, how much that would be. So we can get those, like I said, it'll be either July or August where we'll have a lot better presentation for you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, the next item is staff report on Kulenkamp CIP project.
So, Dave can confirm, but that was an approved by council capital improvement project. That was approved in the budget. And so then we reached out to get quotes for the fencing projects that were to be done. And Ty and Jeremy are here tonight. They are with Forest Lake Baseball Association. They're heavy users at Kulenkamp Park, and the Baseball Association over the last several years has put their own raised dollars into the facility. So staff worked with baseball to find out maybe some wish list items on fencing, and so we put the quotes together for that, and we presented to you guys the low bid quote on that. And again, just kind of the note that the 100,000's approved in the capital improvement plan, but just wanting to move forward with the folks that gave us the quote, and the Deutschlander one, like I said, was low bid. So I don't know if Jeremy or Ty, if you guys have anything to add to that, or kind of the timeline of what you guys have done and how much you've put into those fences, or if you guys just want to hang tight. If you want to just grab the podium, put you really on the spot. And
Welcome.
Thank you. Jeremy Trapp, I'm the Vice President of FLBA. I've been on the board for, it's probably my 9th year. I don't have any kids in the program. They kind of stopped playing baseball when I joined the board. So anyway, Kulenkamp has been kind of a pet project of ours for as long as I've been on the board. We put fences on Kulenkamp 3. We did dugouts on 3. We put a fence on one. Kulenkamp 1 has got a fence. This last year, we did a new shed, 12 by 16 for storing, equipment out there like chalk and clay and stuff like that. And bases and whatever else, drags and stuff. So I would say over the last, like I said, as long as I've been on the board, I mean, I would say at least $40,000 that we've put into the park to make it better. So this capital improvement, if it, everything goes right, we're just very thankful that it got approved. So we just wanted to come here tonight to say thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your work out there.
You bet.
So this is kind of a two-pronged deal. So last year, this commission wasn't here, but Fenway Fields got about $200,000 worth of upgrades. Redid all 5 of the infields. They regraded them, lowered all the fences, put new safety caps on all the top of them, and then top dressed and aerated all the multi-use fields for better drainage. And this was kind of the second step. To his point, FOBA has been very patient. They've been asking for this for probably 5-6 years at least of getting fences in and that, and we've had this plugged into that CIP. So this $80,000 will put fences around 2 fields, we'll increase the backstops, and then we'll put dugouts in. So right now they're just kind of sitting on some metal benches. This will actually be like a dugout, a chain link fence with a rooftop on top. When other teams come into the city, right, you want other kids to say, hey, I'm playing a nice field. And not that it's not a good field, but it needs these upgrades. It's one of these things, and it seems like a lot of money, but it's a really good investment in the fields with youth sports. So I think I really appreciate their patience with this. I keep telling them, just wait, we're gonna try to get this in here, and so we finally have kind of slotted that in where this work could be done. So I think it's a great project to help get these fields a little bit nicer, and just something to take pride in for when we have other cities coming in to play traveling sports.
Just one
Question, Karen?
comment. I go back longer than 9 years. And our friend Al Hoggy, you probably maybe heard of him, remember him fondly. You put in a lot more money than that. If you go back to the history when Fenway was coming along, and I sat through many meetings when people were a little upset, and Al would say how much money they put in out there. So it'd be good research for you to have back further. It's more money. But it's good for us to know these things because people will question, and it's great. I think it's going to be safer, and again, bring in more people, and that's what we want Forest Lake to grow.
Okay, the staff has a recommendation on a motion. Would anybody like to make it, or is there more questions?
A motion for the 80,000.
The motion is to recommend the city council approve the bid from Deutschlander Fencing LLC and authorize the Kulenkamp baseball fields fence improvements with a total project cost not to exceed $100,000. So moved. Tim moves.
I can second it.
Karen seconds. More discussion. All in favor? Aye. Pass. So, on to the council.
So, yeah, just to kind of give you guys a little look, so what we'll do is we'll reach out to the Deutschlander, and then I believe FLBA is gonna be done down at Kulenkamp in sometime mid-July or something, towards the end of July. So then that work will get done as soon as we button it up, and hopefully have it all wrapped up this fall, going into winter. So then when they come back in the spring, it'll be ready to go.
And just so you're aware that the Deutschlander is at 86,000, not to exceed 100 is Public Works. The contractor won't put the tin sheds over top of the dugouts. They don't want to be responsible for that, so then Public Works will buy those materials and then put them on. So that's why that number doesn't equal up. So we'll buy the material, and Public Works, just without staff time, will just buy the material and put those tops on. We've looked at 2 different contractors, and neither one of them wanted to have that part of their bid, so I just think that's,
Yeah. Gotta have them.
I think it's typical. It's just not what they do, right? It's not a fence, it's something different, so they don't want to have to deal with that, which that's what we do, right? Public Works will do that. It's not a big deal, but that's why those two numbers are a little different. Just so it clarifies that, why you know that was a little difference.
Go to 100. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. All right, next item is accepting memorial policy discussion. Kyle, you leading that?
Yeah, so, as many of you are aware, when we talked, leading into this commission, we had just, the idea of trying to put some policies together to, ease instead of constantly bringing things to the commission or council, for one-by-one approvals. There's a lot of generic, requests that come in that can, be easily taken care of by staff, just following the guidelines provided by the policy. So, we did some research on some, local city policies, surrounding areas, and tried to, pick, a more basic, minimal one, and then maybe something, a little bit larger and more options and more price points for families that, like I said, if they can't, they don't want to do a tree or can't afford something, there's a lot of options. So we tried to do two, kind of different policies to look over and choose from, and really, it's, up to the commission to look into what we'd like to do and what we'd like to recommend to city, but, to the council. Just, it's nice, gives staff clear direction, and it also provides some clear direction for community members that are maybe looking to do some sort of donation. This is kind of the start of diving into some policies that we're trying to put together, and this would become a part of, a big Parks and Rec policy handbook, if you will. So it'd be something that we'll put out there. It's gonna have, kind of a glossary index of where it lies, and then again, people can just, if they're interested, they can look at it, and we have clear direction on how we handle things. So just looking for commission feedback on what we'd like to recommend up to city council to set as the memorial donation policy.
You want to maybe walk through the two options, Kyle, just to,
So option A is just gonna be the more options, right? It's gonna give families, more than just a tree or a plaque. Again, the whole idea is to provide very clear direction on how does it work upfront about pricing and installation requirements, maintenance requirements. And again, just really trying to give people more ideas around what they might want to bring to parks, for donations. Really, a lot of the body is just trying to, again, give clear direction on what the steps are gonna be. Again, we don't have any people call up and ask how much, we don't know, but this just kind of provides that. Really trying to make it clear that the donations will become city property and how the maintenance works, but then understanding that, once they make that donation, there's gonna probably be, if it's a bench, there's a timeline on it, and then once that timeline comes up, it's clear that how we're gonna handle that. The second, option B, again, is just really straightforward. It's gonna be just a tree and plaque, I think, is what really it promotes. It kind of leaves us a little bit more vague, and like I said, it's just kind of more just, here's your options, and here we go. Not sure if you guys have any specifics on what you're looking at, or maybe what you want information on as far as items go, or if you have questions about if this is all that's included. The list is kind of just a guideline around what could be.
questions for Kyle or Dave, comments?
Will it be in the handbook that, say I want to have a tree, that tree dies in a year? Is that going to be covered, that it's not going to be a long-lasting tree? I mean, is the maintenance been good around the tree? Is it the weather? What is it? But
Yep, so in that, one of them, it says the city shall be responsible for tree care and replace damaged, dying donations for up to 5 years of the date of planting. You know, so we're trying to cover a bunch of that stuff. I think the biggest thing we're trying to get away from is if somebody wants to donate a park bench at Lakeside, and for a lot of years, we just buy a plaque for them, and then we screwed a plaque onto a bench. They didn't buy the bench, they paid $50 for a plaque, and then now we have I mean, benches are about $2,000, right? So now we have a plaque on a bench that is rusted out, and then what do we do with it now? So I think a lot of this with trees or benches or any of this stuff, we have to put a timeline on it, right? And say, if you donate this, it's a 10-year span, and maybe somewhere in there you can say, you get the first chance, first right of refusal. If 10 years is up, if you want to re-up that next 10 years, we'll give you that opportunity, but otherwise, you know, then it may get replaced. But that's a problem we're running into with a lot of this, is we have plaques around trees that are, you know, rusted out, and we have benches that are rusted, but we have a new plaque on it. And, you know, and to Kyle's point, people call and say, can I donate a tree? Can I do this? And we don't have a policy on that. It would be nice that we can say, Lakeside, we can put 10 more trees in there, all right? And then after that, we can't put any more trees in there, because we also we want to have green space there. But there's 14 spots at Schilling, and there's 23 spots at Summerfield. And I mean, I think if we can get a policy, that would be our next step of giving those locations. Or there's 300 spots at Castlewood for trees. You know, there's all these spots. So without a policy, I don't think we can go to that next step. And it's tough to, you know, to direct people.
I think Tim and I can assure you that it is tough, because conversations came up a lot about the benches, that, you know, he had one for grandma, and nothing was ever said that they're gonna have to replace a $2,000 bench if they want the plaque to continue.
Yeah.
And that's just not fair to punish somebody who's been on that bench for so long. The other discussion that came up was, how many benches does the city provide? Because certainly the city should provide some benches. So again, in the lookbook that you're gonna be having, I don't know how you cover that. I mean, if you think you've got enough benches now. For instance, Belts, people are calling me about, there's no benches by the pickleball and the tennis. Are there gonna be benches there? Will the city put them there, or are you gonna wait for someone to wanna put a bench there?
These are all great questions, Karen. That's why we're having this discussion.
Right.
But I think, to your point too, with, you know, people with the plaques on there, the point of that is it's a donation, but it's also making sure that bench is there, right? So the problem is, you get in that weird spot, is that there's a plaque on there and the bench has failed. So, you know, the goal of this is saying, okay, if you want to donate a bench, it's a 10-year bench and it's $2,000. So you're paying, if you want that memorialized, that's fine. And then you're going to take care of that bench. You're basically taking care of that bench for the next 10 years. You know, you're sponsoring that bench. The problem is, if you put a plaque on it and the bench fails, then what do you do? Do you replace the bench and then put the plaque back on it, even though they paid $50 for the plaque and didn't really memorialize the bench?
Is that part of, you would have a catalog, if you will, of approved items that could be there that would last for the 10 years, so that you don't have somebody, you know, build a bench, let's say.
Correct, but
And
just like a tree, like you'll put you know, you can either, typically most people don't like to put a plaque on the thing. They'll put like a leather band across the tree, right, and say it's been donated by this. And after so many years, if it falls off, it falls off, right? That's part of what it is. But a bench is, for 10 years, the city will maintain that. Or we pick these timelines, right? There might be, maybe it's 15 years, right? Or I think that's what our feedback is you want us to find specific timelines on this? You know, what do you want us to pick for these numbers? And just like I said, then it'll expand out to, okay, well, we have 20 parks around the city. We should probably start labeling where all these trees can go, and then what types of trees we should have and what kind of benches. To Karen's point of, There's probably 3 spots at Belts Park that are great for benches, you know, we can put them on for donation if somebody would like to dedicate those benches, so. We just don't wanna get ahead of ourselves and start putting stuff in and then getting a plaque to put on a bench that we put in, and then it gets weird that we don't, it's dedicated, but it's not dedicated, and Lakeside is the worst with that, right? We have a lot of plaques on benches that we just bought a plaque from, name your contractor that just paid for the plaque, and we legged it onto a bench, and they really didn't dedicate the bench, they just put a plaque on a bench.
You have a lot of people wanting these?
What was that?
You have a lot of people wanting these? I mean, do you have a?
We get a number, and I think if we advertised it, I mean, it's more just like to the simulators at Castlewood, right? If you had it on the website or you put it out on Facebook of, if we get a policy set and we get a list of all the stuff available, I think you're gonna get a good number of people that will wanna do this. It's just, we don't advertise it and we don't have a policy, so we actually don't wanna advertise it because we don't have a policy and we don't know what to do with
I
it.
think a policy is
Definitely.
obvious.
Yeah.
You need to vote that in, and then that way you could say, these are the things available for memorials, and, I mean, you might be able to offset some costs that go into city and park planning whenever you're not, you know, having to put in 10 benches because 5 of them were donated.
Yep.
You know, so,
What's the life expectancy with normal just use of a bench?
I mean, I think the most times we see is 10 years. I mean, Lakeside you're at 15 years now, right? And they haven't been powder coated, they're still in decent shape. I think you don't wanna run the risk of going too far. I think your 10 to 15 15 is probably max. 10 might be a little short, but you just don't wanna get to that point where then it's failed, right?
The ten's a good place.
Yeah, I guess if you have a range of like that, I would think, yeah, you wouldn't want them to have it when it fails. So if you said, well, it's a 10-year plan and it's looking good at year 10, well, you wanna re-up it or, you know, whatever, I mean. But I think if you went out 15 years and the thing failed at year 12, that's not a win for the city, so.
Yeah, not in option B, like I said, it's a lot more of a vague around like the terms, where option A, we kind of get into more clarification, and option A, like the bench terms, we put guaranteed 10 years. Just kind of, based on that information is, I mean, you want to make it a nice deal for those that are donating it to, where they feel good about it, but then, you don't want to overextend it, and then next thing you know, you're replacing them at the end of their lives at the cost of the city.
Kyle, I just thought of something. I know that the state fair, you can get a plaque on a bench, but I don't know anything about that. We can check with the state fair to see what they've got going on, because, you know, you get, I'm supposing it's probably memorializing somebody, because you see the bench with the person on, and I don't know how long you get it for, but we'd be kind of curious just to kind of see, because obviously, the state fair is gonna, those benches are used. So
yeah.
they might have a good
How
handle
long
on
do their
it.
benches last?
Exactly.
Where do they get them? I like that you said, you know, the guaranteed the 10 years. So let's say the bench lasts, like those benches are lasting 15, 17 years, well, then they got a bonus of 7 years out of the deal, right?
Yep.
But guaranteeing it for the 10.
I mean, in a perfect world, I mean, if we get to that point where we're redoing parks every 20 years, right? In a perfect world, if it would last you the lifespan of that, just like Belts. If you said we're gonna be talking about Bayview for that CIP for next year too. So you'll say, we should put 6 benches in here. If you could get those donations, and then you would say, well, hopefully that's the 20-year lifespan or 25-year lifespan of that, and that's that donation, and that covers it, right? And maybe, to your point, it's guaranteed for X amount, and if they start failing at year 15, that's when that contact gets reached out and say, hey, it's looking a little shoddy, we're gonna have to replace it. Would you like to re-up and redonate again for the cost of that bench? And I don't think we're trying to, SOCA donator, it'd be the cost of what the bench costs and what the plaque costs. And I think Public Works would eat the installation and all that. It would just be, you're just basically paying to put that bench in there, and it would be memorialized with a plaque. So I don't think there would be extra cost to it. It's like, hey, thanks for also putting a bench in our park, and then with that, we'll memorialize your loved one or whatever you want to put on there.
This is one of those items that's a balancing point, because parks are supposed to be joyous places, and if everything in the park has got a memorial on it,
Yeah.
so it's a balancing thing. I get it. I mean, certainly Memorial Park, that's the name of it, right? I tell you from my experience too, these memorials are very personal, and I would highly recommend that you limit what people can do, because people are gonna come up with all kinds of creative ideas, and you're gonna have be inundated with special requests. I know at the county, it was either a bench or a tree. And it wasn't even a choice of what the bench was or the tree was. The Public Works dictated, this is the bench, this is the type of tree. Otherwise, you're just gonna get into, my grandpa's favorite tree was a cherry tree. Where can I plant a cherry tree?
And that's something that we cover, is just saying, it's gotta fit the park plan. And we select like, for like option A, we go into the tree selection, species will depend on the park. Staff will assist identifying a suitable tree, so, but that is kind of, like I said, the option A and B, right, is the more vague, where we don't get into the weeds, and then option A does, like I said, open that up a little bit, but it's still going to be, everything will be reviewed, right? It's not necessarily saying that we're just gonna all of a sudden start blasting away on memorials. It's still gonna come here, and it still has to be city council approved, but at least it just really gives staff a guideline to talk the folks through, that are looking to make the memorial. But yeah, I mean, certainly, like I said, it's not gonna be, I don't think we envision, there's gonna be, maybe a good amount, especially as this gets out there and it is more publicized, but it's not, to Don's point, gonna be all of a sudden every park is just gonna be loaded with memorials, right? But certainly, I think it's fair enough to try to
So
do
Kyle,
some pre-work.
when I look at A, there's over a dozen bullets of different things that people could do. Do you really want that?
I
mean,
don't know
actually,
that it's up to me.
My point is, like I say, is I think you'd be better off limiting it. Can't even
I
speak.
was kinda thinking you just have, maybe you have, this is what you can get for a plaque. And maybe it's a picture and it says Tim Gary on it. That's it. Because like you say, all of a sudden they're gonna get creative, they're gonna put flowers and this, and we want a flower holder for Memorial
Right.
Day. or
Well,
whatever.
who memorializes a drinking fountain? So, you might wanna just take certain stuff out and not even talk about it.
I think you might have to separate the memorializing out too, because it's basically a donation policy.
Donation, yeah.
I mean, so FLBA was just here, they put in a shed at Kulenkamp. They didn't put any names on it, they donated a shed. So I think that's part of what you don't wanna have 10 different policies for the same kind of thing you're doing. You're kind of saying, here's a list of all these things, and then if you're donating a shed, yes, they're not gonna be putting their name on it, but a park bench, yes, you're gonna wanna have specifics of, it has to be, I think it might even say that, it has to be 5 by 7, and it can only be so many lines, and it has to be something. And the park bench, you don't get to pick the park bench, the city picks that. And trees, the city will say, we're gonna put 3 oak trees, a maple tree, and a linden in this park. If you wanna donate one of those, you can pick one, but you can't put a cherry tree in here. And also, we're not gonna put 500 benches at Lakeside, because everyone's gonna want a bench at Lakeside. That policy be, these are the benches that we have, and that's, if all of them are donated, then none of them are available.
Okay, so I missed that. So option A is really a donation and memorial policy.
Correct.
And option B is memorial only.
Correct.
Okay.
So donation, memorial, and dedication, because I think, but to your point, the memorial, I don't think everything that gets wants to be donated as necessarily a memorial. Sometimes it's a dedication maybe to, you know, someone that they're proud of versus a memorial for someone that's gone.
So did you say that there are specific locations at each park for a tree? Do you have locations identified in each
So
park?
we don't, so we need a policy first, right? It's one of those, we need to have a policy before that, but between Kyle, myself, and Public Works staff, we'd be able to go through, I mean, just the number of ash trees that have died
Yeah,
over the last couple of years, you'd be able to replant 100 trees in parks, right? And just to Karen's point with belts, we're missing benches. We could find a number of benches. But I think we need to, if we have a policy, then staff needs to come up with, here's the locations of where we want benches, here's the location of where trees make sense. You know, we just don't wanna all of a sudden have 500 benches somewhere, or, you know, a park with trees everywhere. It's, you know, strategically placed everything, trees or benches, or if FLBA wants to donate another shed, we wanna make sure when we accept it that it's in a good spot, that it's gonna be made sound, that, you know, because once we take the donation, it is ours, you know, we thank you for the donation, but it becomes our park bench, it becomes our shed, it becomes our tree. So it's kind of that, thank you for the donation, but that's why the commission and the council are gonna review it before they accept that donation. They wanna make sure we're doing something correctly.
Two things. First of all, I'm very happy to have a list. Some of the things on there I've never even heard of people wanting to think of doing, but, so that's the donation part, like maybe my kid is thirsty all the time and I'd like to donate another water fountain. It wouldn't be like they have their name on it, would be donation for that water fountain.
In certainly that could be a case, right? I guess when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking too, like, we have our master plan, right? And all of a sudden, let's say we, Belts Park, we have these courts now, and, let's say we have, a larger picture coming down the road of more benches or something. And the way I think about it is, hey, maybe we don't have the funding to do X, Y, Z right now. We're talking about lights at Fenway. Well, all of a sudden, we have this policy out there, and all of a sudden someone goes, you know what? We're gonna go find a bunch of money and we're gonna donate sports lights. Like, to me, it's more or less, hey, we have our master plan, but maybe there's things we can't put in there right now, or that we had to eliminate because of X, Y, Z. But then someone like the Lions say, hey, no, we like that there was 5 benches there, and we see that we had to cut it because of a budget. We'll donate those benches. So I mean, it's kind of, it's a moving target, because it depends on how you think about all these things. It's not gonna be like, yeah, my kid says they're thirsty walking home from the high school, so we wanna donate a drinking fountain off a 61 sidewalk or something, right? It's just kind of, it's weird. It depends on the state of mind you're in when you're thinking about it. But to me, it's like, yeah, we'd have this policy in place, but then we're gonna have the plans in place too. And maybe it's something where even, we're talking next year, we have a park that's being planned out and someone's paying attention and says, hey, instead of you guys spending $5,000 on the bench, we'll donate the bench, spend $5,000 on something else, just to enhance and build up the park even more, right? It's just kind of there's a bunch of different scenarios that you could run through, but getting this set is kind of the start of all those, what could kind of come at us.
And that list could probably be a mile long, right? I think they're just, these bullet points are trying to give an example of what could be, but I mean, shed isn't even on there, or somebody could donate a gazebo, or who knows, right? I mean, that's why it says not limited to, but you're trying to give examples of, here's some things that could be donated. I mean, Belts Park was a good example. With that, the original rendition had a pavilion there with a drinking fountain and bathrooms, right? So if now all of a sudden a drinking fountain on there, say M Health, or somebody wants to say, hey, we want to throw some money at a park, we have money to provide a drinking fountain. You know, so it's stuff like that when we're trying to redo these parks, that we have this list of, okay, we can throw this out there of, we can put in 6 benches and 10 picnic tables and 15 trees. There's a whole bunch of opportunities for people to donate.
So if we pick option A or option B today, do we get any prices coming with this? Are we gonna be able to oversee you're gonna have to have prices on all these things, and if I vote for option A, we're just gonna be at the mercy of however you find it, or are we gonna come back and say, no, this is option A, what we have listed and how much we would charge? Because people are gonna ask me, and so right now too, because we don't have the policy yet, and they ask me, so then I say, let's wait for a while, because we're getting a policy together. That would be probably my standard answer, because right now, they have to go and talk to you about what they could do, and I just don't know where we sit with the whole final plan.
So on there, it says cost rate. On this, if you're looking at the first one, it says donor shall cover the full cost vendor price plus 50%. For purchase installation, installation may include labor costs by park maintenance staff. Any additional costs were reviewed by the commission and approval. So I mean, that's what we're asking for your opinion. Do you want it just to be at cost? Do you want city to donate their time to do this? I mean, that's what we're looking for feedback of, you know, to adopt this policy is we want you not to have that question. We want you to weigh in on that and saying, what do we want to do for cost? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming we want to go backwards and
No, I like
lose
the
money
city
on
to
it.
help.
And I think that
That's my plan.
that 15% will cover your overhead, right, of Cal's time, my time to get the stuff ordered, to get it here, and staff to put it in. I think that's a pretty common price. We also, you know, don't want to charge someone $10,000 to put a park bench in because then it won't go in.
So right now, if someone wanted, with this policy, for instance, is a person gonna pay the whole 10,000 for, or 2,000, what was it for the bench, 10,000?
I think the
2,000?
standard's 2,000.
2,000, okay, so they'd have to pay, if they're gonna want a bench with a plaque, they'd have to pay the 2,000.
Yep.
upfront.
15%, if we choose option A.
Okay, plus 15%.
And-
The city, you know, we want this to be a cooperative venture with the people beautifying our city by trees and benches and whatever. So I think the city too, that little spot you had about the city helping with the insulation or installation or whatever, I still think would be good to be in there.
Well, option A has a lot more detail,
Oh, yeah.
and it just lays it out, so there's no second guessing.
But we don't
What
see
you
the
do.
numbers actually, no.
Yeah, we do need, yeah, it would be.
But the number, they're gonna change every month, depending on what stuff costs.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, because you had asked that, Karen, of are we gonna have like a price list? So if we have this policy in place, we can certainly have the more generic things kind of on hand, where maybe it's not posted online, but, you know, maybe we have something that staff has on file, or we share with commission to say, hey, okay, so here's the general cost of trees, benches. So if someone does ask, you can say, yep, if you want to make a bench donation, it's $2,000 for a bench. I don't know, again, if we would post that online, because to Don's point too, in, you know, May it might cost X, but then also in December it costs Y. But the whole point would be at least there's that dedication of like, okay, hey, I want to do the bench. I know I'm going to pay for the bench, so I'm going to contact someone to find out how much that bench costs. And again, that's for all of us to decide, is do we want to do a little pamphlet to say, in general, a bench costs this, a tree costs that, and kind of lay those out. And yeah, subject to change or something like that. But how I, again, envision this working is it opens up some ideas to people, and if they're looking to do something, I mean, I'm not gonna make it seem like it happens all the time, but in community ed world or working with programming world, you do hear people say, how do we donate money? I work for 3M and we have this office pool where we can pick something to donate to. At least this puts it out there that there's some options, and it can stir the conversations of, oh, what if we can give back, or what if we do know there's a new park coming in, we wanna be a part of donating X, Y, Z, but, go ahead, Don.
So I hear people are leaning towards option A, and the discussion is on cost, which is section 4. The question is do we want to have the city public works install at no cost? The people that are donating, they pay for the material, the city covers the install? Or do you want the donator to also pay for the install?
I want the city to pay for the
Yeah, I was
install.
asking a lot to have them pay for all that, but.
they're making large donations as it is, and
So it could-
I don't think Public Works has an issue with that. I think that's
Okay.
part of what we do, right? I think that's a great,
Okay,
great.
Especially,
fu-
it's gonna be a part of the master plan anyway, so if they're taking away parts of those costs, then we install it. I think I'm gonna. agree
so
with
section
that.
4, Kyle, we would tweak that to say donor shall cover the full cost for the purchase of the donation. And installation will be provided by park maintenance staff, something like that?
Yep.
Okay,
And even strike the plus 15%.
Yeah, strike the plus 15,
Just
yeah.
cost.
the other, more of a formatting thing, Dave and Kyle, is section 11 is titled Memorial Tree. And then down below, we talk about benches and plaques. I'm wondering if you just want to change the title of that to memorials.
Yeah.
And then section 12 says memorial statues, fountains. I'm wondering if you just want to strike the word memorial and say statues. Okay.
Yep, I think that's great. Well,
Under the heading now, I understand that this is also donation policy.
Yeah, and yeah, I kind of missed that when introducing it as well, so I apologize.
Yeah. No, nothing to apologize for. That's why we're all, many eyes, right?
right.
yeah, it's a good catch. We'll probably just make a section 12 with benches and then a section 13 for the statues, but
What-
just remove memorial from both and just
Sure.
have trees and then benches.
Sure. Is there any other things that if we are gravitating towards option A, that people would like to see? Once again, this is a recommendation to the council.
I don't know if we want to, Karen brought that up too, just for cost. I don't know if we want to, I don't know how you put that in there, if we, to give people an idea of cost, right? And I get stuff moves, but it's, I don't even know if we have to list that, or it's, contact for estimated costs or something. And it's gonna be different, right? Because a lakeside bench is gonna be those blue ones that are this way, but
Yeah.
another bench may be a black one, a different thing, and or a maple tree may be $10 more than a linden or whatever, but I think for us, just to kind of have a general cost, I mean, we can,
Just have it on hand.
something in there that for cost, or contact Parks and Rec Department for estimated costs on what,
I would do something like that.
Yeah.
You can do like a restaurant that says market price,
Yep.
it's gonna be expensive.
but at least to give them an idea, right?
Like where to contact, so you get,
And that was my thought.
Yep.
I think Kyle will be busy, but not with 100 phone calls, but he'd be the place, I think.
No, but I think just between Public Works and Kyle, that we can get a general idea, right? I mean, we can know a park bench is gonna be relatively between these numbers, and a tree's gonna be relatively between that. So if somebody's looking to donate something, they say, I have $500 to donate, they kinda will have an idea of, okay, this is something I can afford. I can maybe get 2 trees, or I think I'm gonna need a little more for a bench, or something like that.
Dave, a suggestion, knowing that these prices do change, but people want to know, is keep it out of the policy, but on the website where you have, I imagine you have a link to this policy, or you can have that description, just donations, and then you can describe that this year, bench is approximately whatever.
Kyle's really good at hyperlinks, so he could probably put a link in there and
Yeah.
it could go say, check current pricing. And then you could just kind of have an estimated, a bench is estimated at this much, a tree is estimated at this much, a drinking fountain is this much. I mean,
Each
kind of,
year you'll have a plan, and whatever park you're working on, those benches are gonna cost whatever those benches cost.
Yep.
that year.
and I mean, the hope would be, right, that you do a redo at Bayview Park next year and you're gonna put in 6 benches, that you get 6 people to donate benches, but maybe you don't get that, but somebody wants to donate a bench at, name your other park, Manor Park or something. Well then, okay, we still need to know that cost and kind of what's gonna fit into that park, and do we need another bench there, or do we want one? And I think that's what'll be the review of, okay, somebody wants to put a bench at this park, we already have 3 here, a group here, do we wanna put another one in, or do we wanna push them somewhere else? Sometimes that's gonna be that tough decision of, I know you wanna donate a bench there, but we don't need any more benches here either, so.
Karen?
I have another, what-if problem. I know Kyle thinks I'd like to grandfather people in, and I do, but let's say I had a plaque 3 years ago, and now we have this policy. So does that mean, unbeknown to me, that I had to pay 7 years later for the 10,000? Is there any way that if you're grandfathered in before the policy? Because that's not in the policy now. If somebody 3 years ago,
So Cal and I have talked about that, and I think everybody, it's mostly Lakeside, right? Mostly Lakeside is the donations that we have contact information for these folks. And then when we do a redo down there, which may be within the next 5 years, right, where we need to do benches, they would be contacted first and say, we're doing a rehab of all benches and all that. Would you like to redonate your bench? This time you're gonna have to pay for the bench and memorialize it. You get the first right of refusal to it. And if they say, no, I don't want it, we'll give them take the plaque off, give them their plaque if they like it, but then, then move on. I think, yes, so grandfather to a point, but then give them the first option for when it does get rehabbed to be put back in.
okay,
Now, do you have a vendor for these benches, or do you have?
They're all over the board. I mean, it'll depend, like, so you guys picked Manor Park, so, with Play Creations, they're gonna make those concrete ones that'll look like logs. We may pick Flagship to do Bayview, and they're gonna have a vendor that sells this vendor's benches, and we may go to the next thing, and I'm not so concerned that we have one standard bench throughout the city. I think sometimes that gets boring too, you want them to match kind of the feel of your park, you want them to
Right.
kind of blend in, so I think it's kind of gonna be,
Otherwise, they all have to be switched out at the same time, because they're not
Yep.
gonna sell that bench out. You know what
Yep.
I mean? We're doing it like staggered, so.
sometimes it's nice to have one thing the same, so you can keep the same part and keep the same whatever, but with a bench, I mean, you're hoping that when you put it in, it's gonna last you 20 years. So I mean, you're hoping that when you put it in, you don't have to find another bench that'll match that at some point. And it's a lot of money to sit on 5 benches at Public Works just in case something rusts out, so you're sitting on a lot of money.
Any other comments or questions?
I was just gonna point out that if you do put any numbers on the website or a link to numbers, I would just make sure you disclaim the heck out of it, so people understand that, yeah, this isn't set in stone.
Yep.
approximate.
Good idea.
I think we'll give a pretty wide range
Yeah,
of, there's not gonna be a number, it could be between $1,000 and $4,000 or something, I mean, you know what I mean, or a tree could be between $100 and $300 that we know for sure we're gonna hit inside that number. But that's a very good point, that you don't wanna,
It'd still be helpful if you can have.
your
that.
website said it was this amount, and then,
yeah, right, yeah.
Well, otherwise, we could use a motion to, let me see if I got it right here.
Turn it over to city council.
It would be a motion to recommend council approves accepting Merle's donation, and I'll say option A, with revisions discussed as part of the overall Parks and Recreation Department policies. Somebody want to,
So moved.
Tim makes that motion,
I second.
and Sue seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Nice work on that, Kyle.
yeah,
Okay, I think we're down to staff updates. Kyle?
Just a couple items. Pickleball group, been seeing there's a large group that uses the Fenway Park pickleball courts pretty regularly. Can be up to, I think, 100+ people. I don't know if that's at one time per se, but there's that many people that are in and out of there. Certainly those courts do get very busy, so it's always nice to see a lot of folks out there. Henry's provided me some program updates too as we go. I don't know if he specified the numbers, but they had their youth camps that they run out at Castlewood. They had 48 kids registered for their Tuesday and 29 kids on their Wednesday. So it's a summer-long golf clinics and leagues, I believe they do for the youth. park rentals, I'm gonna try to pull more details out as we go to, and I'll give you guys a more broad update during July, but just kind of looking at some just park rentals in general. We've had 20 requests up through today, and that's gonna be like gazebo, picnic shelters, pavilion, stuff like that throughout the park system. That doesn't include, obviously, the athletic fields usage, pickleball courts. We've had a couple reservations. This is just mostly, this is all park pavilion shelter rentals. So pretty good on that, but we're gonna try to keep close track to how many people are actually using those facilities. Vets Memorial, I'm gonna try not to go too far into that, but I would like to just provide a couple updates of that project is gonna be, we're gonna see at Lakeside Memorial Park. Certainly we can provide, maybe a future meeting, a more dive into further details, but just that's coming along. That's something that you guys may hear and see some things about. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to me, but just getting some construction progress. That's gonna start, I believe, in September, right after Labor Day there. So that memorial, long backstory there, but yeah, just it's gonna actually get kicked off down at Memorial Park this fall. So just staff, Dave is very involved with that too, just getting the construction stuff going and moving forward, which is nice to see. Arts in the Park, where we completed, I think, was that already our third week? Been pretty lucky with some fortunate weather, knock on wood. I probably shouldn't have just said that, but we got week 4 next week, and then we have a little break around the 4th of July, which we're all excited about. But it's been going pretty well. Again, good weather, good music. We've seen an increase every week. We think I kind of estimated over 1,000 people there just last night, and really good music so far, and it's just been a pretty positive thing there. Did get some update on FLA. They provided their spring sports numbers this year. So baseball had 184 kids. Most of them are using our system for fields, practices, games. Fast pitch had 198 registrations. Lacrosse had 152. And based off their numbers from last year, that's pretty standard. But they just provided an update on numbers. And again, while there are some of those groups that do use some fields outside of the city Forest Lake, most of that is done at our city fields, Fenway. They also do some rentals at the school district too, but most of it in Forest Lake. So just some number updates. It's always nice to see and get that information from those groups. So there's a lot more things going on out there. I'm trying to track down as much as I can, but there's a lot of people in the parks. Lakeside's very busy. Park rangers have moved, they're there 7 days a week. They're seasonal park ranger staff. Tomorrow for like the holiday, full-time staff will be off, but we'll have park rangers down there pretty much all day, 9 to 9. Expecting those to be, that park to be pretty busy, so as long as the rain holds off, so. Yeah, just,
Thanks, Kyle.
yeah.
Bell's Park seems to be moving along with construction. There's a bunch of activity out there.
Is that a question, or is that a? Yeah, it's coming along. The court's really nice, a lot of activity. Site planning is, I believe, kicked off. It's gonna probably take place most of July for the remaining of the work to be done to get started. I think August 4th was the date for the playground construction to begin, with anticipation of being completed by the end of August.
And moving some dirt or something out there.
Yep,
the last
so
couple days.
all the site work, all the pedestrian facilities are going in first, so there'll be all new trails, sidewalks going throughout the park, ADA compliant, trails and facilities, and then the playground will come in once that's in, so they'll hopefully be done by mid-August.
Lots of use at night, it's really good to have those lights out there.
Yep.
because, there's still people playing tennis, pickleball, basketball, so
It's nice to have nice courts that there's not cracks all over the place and trip hazards.
I was just wondering what pickleball is exactly. Oh, what pickleball is? We should have a demonstration.
I think you should show me.
Very popular, very popular.
We should maybe do a pickleball tour.
We were talking about lights. I mean, I have another list when it's my turn, but he mentioned lights, and the neighbor over there asked me, why are the lights on so long when nobody's there? They're supposed to be off at 10 is what I think I found out.
So that's what I was kind of pointing at you there, because I know there was a question. So there's a double timer set up, and Dave's explained it to me like 100 times, so he's probably annoyed that I don't know. But so there's an option that the lights are able to be on until 10, and then there's a button that they can push that actually activates the lights. So if there's no one out there to activate the lights they will shut off automatically, but they'll shut off at 10 period.
Okay.
So even if somebody activates, let's say, so the activation button lasts for 45 minutes. So if I go out there at 9:45, hit the activation button, it's technically a 45-minute timer. However, at 10 o'clock, it's a hard stop for the lights.
Oh, wow.
So if I come in at 9:15 and hit the button, 10 o'clock, hard stop, 45 minutes up. If I go there at 9, hit the button, the lights will turn off automatically at 9:45, but there's another 15 minutes that I can repress the lights to turn them on. So
And
it's,
and if you push the button and you're only out there for 10 minutes, it's still gonna stay on for 45 minutes. There's no way to turn them back off.
And is there a charge to push the button? And also, is it, I can see
25
that
cents
you-
payable to Dave Adams.
It'd be a little tough to explain that all that you just explained, but, yeah.
Would just
so-
say they're on till 10.
If you push the button at 9:45, they're off at 10.
They're off at 10.
So Kyle explained it
Until 10.
perfectly. There's a timer inside there that the lights can only come on between 5 PM and 10 PM.
Okay.
And then in between that timer, if you push the button at the courts, it'll run for 45 minutes. And that 45 minutes is the standard of playing tennis to be able to play a set or something. However, they explained it to me is that's kind of the average time that it would take that you could play, for tennis or play for basketball, that half an hour is too short, an hour is too long. 45 is kind of that amount.
and I think that's an opportunity for staff to probably get some sort of signage out there on that button, and certainly I'll kind of follow up on that. Just, you said it's a lot, how, people aren't gonna know that, right? But that option being available, we'll definitely look at some sort of signage, for the most part, the summer months.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think it's, it's light pretty long where most people are, they're pretty good, but.
I just have a few updates. I alluded to it before. I will come back in July with the CIP for the stuff that's planned, and at least in 2026, to get the group's feedback if it's recommended or not recommended. Community development will be here in July. There's a concept plan for a development in town. That's all I can say. But they're gonna need feedback for pedestrian facilities. This one won't be a park. You need comments on pedestrian facilities in this neighborhood. Let's Go Fishing. I'm giving you updates from last commission meeting. Let's Go Fishing. Kyle's still working with the group to kind of work through those logistics. So stay tuned for that. The landscaping, that we're gonna make those 2 parking spots. We ripped out the sumac last week and just put mulch in it for the time being until we can get caught up, so at least it doesn't look really bad. So if you're down there and you see the mulch, at least we're making our step. We got the sod in, and that other step, if you've been down there, you probably have seen that, the trees and the sod in there, so. And then we met with the district and FLA on Monday for that, the field preparation, if you remember that, about FLA not wanting to maintain the fields next year. So we took one step of kind of figuring out where FLA was in the whole deal, and it's kind of gonna, they don't really want to do anything. They want to be able to show up to the field with it painted and just play ball, which is fine. That's what we wanted to get out of that first conversation. So now it's gonna be kind of the school and the city and reaching out to third parties to try to get costs, and then bring that back with FLA and with the commission here to kind of update you on where that's all at, so. But just letting you know, we're working through that. We told them we owe them FLA a response back by the end of July, because we know their budgeting comes up in October, so. And we also need to know that for our budgeting too. And just so you're aware, Public Works has put in a field groomer and 2 part-time maintenance staff into the budget for 26, just in case we are taking that on. So we've accounted for that if worst case scenario that we have to pick that up. So we're trying to plan ahead, but we just have nothing else to report at that, but we're working through that. Yep.
So the plan, a long time ago, the discussion was, FLA wanted to do it because they know fields. City, they didn't want to do it because city would have, good intentions, but they didn't always know about the fields, how to groom them and how to take care of them. Obviously, that's all been kind of water over the dam, that now they're thinking, you're gonna hire maybe this guy who knows about fields more?
I would say that we probably know a lot more than FLA about fields now.
No, I don't know. But
I would.
everybody's happy, that's
Yep,
what we want at
Yep,
the end.
and I think they're comfortable knowing that we know what we're doing too, and whether it's us, the school, or a third party, I think FLA has relayed back to us that they're comfortable with, they wanna do what they do best, is program and have kids play sports, and they don't wanna have to maintain fields, which is understandable, and in all honesty, that's what we've been trying to get to a number of years, to get to that point where we do maintenance, let's maintain, you do programming, you program. Let's separate that out,
I'm glad it's a
so.
friendly discussion.
Yep, it'll just be the money part. That's the whole thing to make that all work. Yep, that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Commissioner updates, while we go down the row, Sandra, anything?
No.
Okay, Karen?
Yeah, Tim took care of one. I had a couple of calls. Again, we live in the neighborhood, so I get a couple of calls about belts. And I was telling them that I knew that the first phase was gonna be the groundwork, and didn't come for quite a while. So now it's coming, from what I saw today even. They're bringing in dirt and flags and all sorts of things. So is that what's happening right now, is they're putting in all the ADA bottom part?
Yep,
Okay.
we were waiting for the watershed permit. There was some issues over the stormwater pond that they gotta put in a kind of biofiltration pond, and they didn't get permitted on that, so that finally got approved at their last meeting. So they were supposed to start 2 weeks ago, but they didn't get the permit till Friday, so that's why they waited till, they figure it's about a month, 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks to do all the site work, do all the removals, add the sidewalks, the
Weather
trails.
permitting.
What was that?
Weather permitting.
Yes.
No, it does make, the next thing, down at Arts in the Park last night, we were discussing the fact that there's no handicap parking.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And, not only is that not convenient for our populace, but it's also, I think, against the law that we don't have so many spaces. And there's a sign up there that says handicap parking, but then there's a big truck parking there, and so you know that there isn't any handicap parking. So I think I was looking for help, or commission, or anyone, to see how we could solve that problem, because it's a big one.
I'll just hit on, yep, you're accurate in some of the things there. We do bring in temporary handicap parking signage, and we do dedicate a couple spots for the spots that are taken up. I think, how many spots are taken up from the food trucks?
We take up 2 and then we replace them with 2 in the lot.
Yep, so there's,
We found one. So you think there's two, and are they way at the end?
They're back to back, so there's
They're way
2
at the end.
spots. They're double sign, right? Yep.
yep, so in that's, it's not very far from the main entrance where the city tent is. So if you're leaving the city tent, walking out into that main parking lot, it's those first spots to the left.
It's not the first spots to the left, it's
Not,
quite a
not,
ways down.
not where the food trucks are, but
No,
into the
that's-
main lot.
Long way down.
No, it's you know where the dumpster is?
Yes.
It's 2 spots right out in front of there.
Are you calling that the main entrance?
No, well, I'm just saying it's not,
Go to the dumpster, and we're gonna, I would say that's way back at the end, like the gentleman or lady was both telling me about. They said they're way down at the end. I would agree with that. I don't know why you call anything next to the dumpster
Do you have?
as kind of good.
Get loaded up here.
yeah, we might not be on the same page. Do you wanna,
I'm just waiting for it to load.
we'll pull it up on the map to show you, because I think, I don't know if we're talking about the same area.
To the left of the, anyway, we used to have, parking right on the street, and now the trucks are there, of course, so we can't do that. And the response was, the only other ones, other than she only saw one, was over by the building, which most of the building wants that reserved for them. And so I just think it's, let's say we have 2. Is 2 enough to handle that big
So-
crowds that we have down there, or shall we try to be creative in another way?
So the two parking spots that are handicapped are, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Are here and here.
Right.
They get replaced by the spots here. There's actually, it's these
It's
two.
those two, yep.
And then FLPD has these two spots reserved, and then the band have these two. So these 6 spots are coned off the morning of. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I think 12 other handicap in the municipal lot. I understand where they want it right next to Arts in the Park, but the municipal lot we just can't shift parking spots for events, right? Because
Can we take that sign down then? Because that's absolutely not true. The one where it says handicap parking.
You're talking about where the food trucks block?
Correct.
So she's talking about those parking spots?
Are those permanent signs?
they're just permanent signs.
Yeah.
I mean, we could bag them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
We could bag them, but we are providing, when we take them up with vendors, we provide those 2 extra spots on the lot. So we're not,
But you
we
know
are
me
ADA
coming in
compliant, we're not
handicapped,
taking away.
I'm not gonna know any of that.
What was
When I
that?
come in handicapped, I'm not gonna know that, oh, that sign means over there. But it's, I just don't like the sign being that it says there when it's maybe 12, 14 in other places. I get that, but I don't know.
Is it like during the middle of the day before Arts in the Park? 'Cause I mean, if it's during Arts in the Park, there's a vendor there, so I don't even know how they see the sign.
yeah.
It's way high.
So,
I just don't know, okay.
I look up.
Put a garbage bag over it.
People-
I mean,
I mean,
we
I
can-
just, can you see my point? I come in there and I see, oh, I don't see any handicap where I used to see it, because we used to see across the front there. But its sign says it's here, but it's not here, so I wonder where it is.
I mean, those handicap spots haven't been there for 10 years since we've done Arts in the Park in those spots. I mean, it's not a new thing that we've,
10 years? Wow. Time's so fast.
So I think,
so I mean.
so I think Dave,
We can definitely bag
Public
them.
Works has got it. You can look at bagging that one sign, Dave, that's there. And
Confusion, yeah.
Yeah.
And-
the
and-
reality is whether you're handicapped or not, the parking for this event is a challenge.
It is, you can't rotate the whole parking lot to, because otherwise then you're gonna have to sign the handicap spots to non-handicapped and then create other spots, and it's a mess. We've gotten those complaints before, but we are within compliance, we're providing enough ADA parking, and even the ones we take, we do replace, so we can definitely bag those ones off if that is causing confusion for residents, but, I would kinda go against
There-
creating more, because I don't know how many more spots we wanna take up.
Well,
for
they're
that.
probably good for non-arts in the park. You can take the bag off. I don't know how a bag would look so
We-
cute, but a pew
So what we
change.
do is when we cone it, when you cone it in the morning, cone off it, we'll bag those 2 signs.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
See,
All
problem
right.
solved.
and did you, I just want to make sure, these are the spots that we do right where the cursor is? We have
Can't see
the,
your cursor.
It's way at the bottom.
Oh, it's way down there.
so these are the 2 spots that we replace, and we do have a handicap sign there. That's a temporary sign. So I just want to make sure that you know that there's the temporary sign gets put up in those 2 coned off spots for the 2 spots we take up. But in addition, we'll bag the permanent signage that's blocked
Okay.
by the food trucks.
Yeah.
Thank you. The other thing I had on mind was to thank Kyle for the job that he's doing, because he has just started and there's a lot of confusion about things down there, and he handles it well. Even with the people that don't think he handles it well for them, they still don't get mad at him. So he's just a great employee to have. He's always out there to put his number out and get back to the people if they do have a question. And being as long as I have in the city, that's a real plus to me, that he is out there actually caring about making sure the people have their questions answered. So, thank you.
Thanks.
He's all right.
Dave reminds me I'm good every day.
All right, let's go down the row. Sue,
No, I'm good.
Tim? Melissa?
Nope, we covered everything I was
Okay.
wanting to hear about.
I mean, I would just echo Karen's comments on Arts in the Park, and I'd encourage any of the commission members too, that, I know Kyle was looking for volunteers for nights. I'll tell you one benefit, you get a nice chair under the tent and you can watch the band.
I did see
But
the
it's,
sign-up sheet. I will
it was a
sign
lot,
up, I
it was a lot of fun watching the kids come up and color, and Kyle does a great job setting that up and scrambling, so I echo those comments.
I'll help anytime you need it.
Great.
I guess I do have one thing. When we talked about the memorials, I was wondering, is any of the policy gonna be around when people make their own makeshift memorials
Oh, yeah,
in
good
public
question.
places? Because I really, I see them on the roadsides, and that's one thing, you just drive by them, and went there at the parks, and I was
yeah.
really happy to see that there was a sign at Lakeside Park, and now not that whole memorial that's there. So is that gonna be part of it? Like, what is and isn't acceptable by the city? I love that.
Yeah, I think again, any of the memorials will still have to be approved, right? And I'm trying to find it here, but I believe we do have like limits of what wouldn't be, not accepted for donations. Yeah, yep.
To his point and to your question, having a policy would probably help us out greatly. If this was something that was done against city policy, would greatly help us in enforcing stuff that shouldn't be there.
There still is a remnant of a memorial down there, correct? I understand they took
think
the
it's gone,
plaque and
isn't it?
gave it to the family, but.
No,
that
there is a plaque there, by a tree,
How
so.
about flowers and memorials?
That has been worked out with the family, and removals happen weekly by Public Works.
Okay, 'cause that has, I'm glad she brought that up, that has been a question.
But that's a very good point, but that's, I think, why, if we have a policy, then we have something to lean on if something gets out of control in the future with who knows what it is, right? And then at least we can say this is against a policy that wasn't approved by the city and gives us something to stand on, so.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tim, second.
Second? I
Second by Sue. Thanks, Sue. All in favor? All right, thanks, everyone.